Now, if you are familiar with the words "not tonight, dear," there might be more to worry about than the predictable headache, which often accompanies excuses for not wanting to kind of cozy up with your partner. A US doctor has a name for the condition. He calls it intimacy anorexia, which is characterized by one person starving their partner of love and affection.
According to psychologist Douglas Weiss, the term describes withdrawing from a relationship by withholding emotional, spiritual and sexual intimacy, and Dr. Weiss calls it a marriage wrecker. So what can be done about this intimacy anorexia? Nikki Goldstein is a sexologist and relationship expert, and she's with us now. Hi, Nikki.
Hi.
How can you spot a relationship like this and a relationship anorexic?
Well, there's various things you need to look out for. One of the biggest things is a lack of communication and feeling words. So generally the conversations tend to be very factual. So if your partner's coming home from work and you say, "How was your day?" and they just respond with "fine." Another thing is also lack of touch and feeling and public displays of affection. Also too, and this is pretty obvious, if there's no sex or sexual contact. But do keep in mind that someone who is an intimacy anorexic can have sex, but it can be very mechanical and without emotions. You also need to be aware too if someone is criticising you. The way of criticising can actually be the only form of communication that they have with their partner. And also blaming. So if they're blaming things, problems in the relationship on others or on you, that's often another telltale sign.
Is it more common in men or women?
Personally, I do think it's more common in men. Women, generally speaking, do need intimacy to be sexually turned on. And we are taught from a younger age to be intimate and to be emotional. But men are brought up to be macho and tough and bring home the bacon. And often they're not taught to be intimate and emotional. So I think when we're looking at this, it can also be a case of gender stereotyping.
Okay, it's been described as an addiction. I mean, how do you become addicted to withholding intimacy? It seems strange.
Well, I actually hesitate when using the term addiction because we do throw it around a lot these days. For me, an addiction is something that you crave or you need or you desire. So when we're looking at withholding intimacy, I think we more need to look at that it's a coping mechanism and it's also something people become used to. So it really is a learnt response that becomes so automatic that people sometimes aren't even aware of actually what's going on.
How might it start to affect the partner of an intimacy anorexic? The relationship is not good.
Well, it can be very damaging. One of the biggest things is low self-esteem, depression, increased weight, decreased appetite, and also that person can become an intimacy anorexic themselves. And it can also be very hurtful and isolating to have someone who is physically present with you but not emotionally. So it's very demoralizing for someone also to have to be able to have maybe beg for sex or actually beg for that physical connection.
Okay, a lot of people confuse sex with intimacy, but how is sex important in a situation like this? If you're trying to overcome, if you've got this problem and you're trying to overcome it, I guess.
Well, I think it is important to connect with your partner on a physical and emotional level, but we do need to look at that you can have sex with and without intimacy. So
that's,
even
as you mentioned earlier,
even though you might be with somebody and they still might be having sex with you, they may be from a different mental place. So there may be a lack of emotions and feelings and connections. So for some couples too, I think that kissing and cuddling can be a lot more intimate, and it's more to make sure that it is there from the right place.
What do you do if you're in this relationship and that intimacy is being withdrawn? Where do you start?
Well, I think the biggest thing is get back to the basics. Have a date night, close the door, watch a movie on the couch. I also think you need to look at what intimacy is, because a lot of couples go through relationships and they say, well, we've lost intimacy. You need to have a look at, well, what was intimacy in the first place for you? And I also think there is a difference in some people's definitions between what intimacy is. So it's useful to have that conversation. I also think the biggest thing is switch off. Get off Twitter, get off Facebook, switch off the TV and just be physically present with your partner. I also think communicating, which is the biggest thing. And that's something that can be done verbally and non-verbally. So as we're saying, with touch and kissing and cuddling.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Nikki.
Thanks, Nikki. Good to see you.
Good advice there.